Imagine a nation that discovers a seemingly endless river of gold and silver. A superpower that controls vast continents, bringing in more wealth than any empire before it. You'd think that nation would be destined for eternal prosperity, wouldn't you? You'd be wrong. This is the story of Spain, a nation that stumbled upon the greatest treasure trove in history, only to see that immense wealth become a curse that crippled its economy, sparked endless wars, and ultimately led to its decline from global dominance. This is the tragic tale of how a flood of precious metals didn't build an empire, but destroyed it. To understand Spain's gilded curse, we have to go back to the late 5th, 10th, and early 16th centuries. Spain, having just completed the Reconquista and funded Christopher Columbus's voyages, was a rising power, eager to carve out its place in the world. What they found across the Atlantic wasn't just new lands, but entire empires, the Aztecs and the Incas, sitting on unimaginable quantities of gold and silver. The Spanish conquistadors, with brutal efficiency, plundered these civilizations, melting down intricate artworks and religious artifacts into bullion. Suddenly, galleons laden with silver and gold began making regular voyages from the mines of Potosi in Bolivia and Zacatecas in Mexico, across the Atlantic to the Spanish port of Seville. It was the greatest transfer of wealth the world had ever seen. For a time, it seemed like a dream come true. The Spanish crown, flush with what seemed like infinite riches, became the most powerful force in Europe. They used this wealth to finance massive armies, build formidable navies, and fund an ambitious foreign policy aimed at dominating the continent. From the costly wars against Protestant forces in the Netherlands to the ongoing conflicts with France and the Ottoman Empire, Spain's imperial ambitions were seemingly limitless, fueled by the endless stream of New World silver. It was an era of unprecedented grandeur, an empire on which the sun never set, powered by a currency of pure metal. But here's where the paradox begins. This sudden, massive influx of silver and gold didn't make Spain permanently rich, it made it economically ill. The first and most devastating symptom was runaway inflation. Imagine if suddenly everyone in your country had 10 times more money, but there wasn't 10 times more food, clothes, or houses. Prices would skyrocket. That's exactly what happened in Spain, albeit more gradually. As vast quantities of silver poured into the economy, its value, relative to goods and services, began to decline. This phenomena, which historians later called the price revolution, saw prices for essential goods in Spain rise by as much as 400% over the 16th century. This wasn't just an abstract economic theory. It destroyed Spain's once vibrant domestic industries. As local prices for goods like textiles, agricultural products, and manufactured items soared, they became far more expensive than goods produced in other European countries. Spanish merchants and consumers found it cheaper to buy foreign imports, crippling local producers who couldn't compete. The once thriving industries of Castile, for instance, withered away. Instead of fostering domestic production, Spain became increasingly reliant on foreign suppliers, spending its precious American silver to enrich other nations. The very wealth that should have strengthened Spain instead hollowed out its productive capacity. The second major consequence was an addiction to easy money and an aversion to real economic work. Why invest in complex manufacturing, innovative agriculture, or efficient trade when you could simply wait for the next treasure fleet to arrive? The Spanish crown, with its seemingly bottomless treasury, spent lavishly without needing to foster a robust internal economy based on innovation, savings, or prudent fiscal management. This created a culture of fiscal irresponsibility. The government habitually spent beyond its means, believing that the next shipment of silver would always cover the deficit. This led to a series of calamitous defaults on its debts. Between 1557 and 1696, the Spanish monarchy declared bankruptcy a staggering 8 times. Each default sent shockwaves through European financial markets and further undermined Spain's creditworthiness, making it harder and more expensive for the kingdom to borrow money when its silver shipments inevitably fluctuated. This economic fragility was magnified by Spain's relentless pursuit of imperial glory and religious dogma. The vast influx of New World silver was not used to build lasting economic infrastructure within Spain, but rather to fund an endless string of expensive wars across Europe. From the protracted struggle to suppress the Protestant revolt in the Netherlands, which lasted for 80 years, to conflicts with France, England, and the Ottoman Empire, Spain's immense wealth was poured into military expenditures. These wars were costly in both human lives and financial resources, draining the royal treasury even as silver continued to flow in. The pursuit of political and religious dominance superseded sound economic policy, turning silver into ammunition rather than lasting prosperity. Furthermore, the very nature of Spain's wealth made it a target. The heavily laden treasure fleets, traveling across vast oceans, became irresistible prizes for rival powers. English privateers like Sir Francis Drake constantly harried Spanish shipping, capturing galleons and seizing their valuable cargo. This forced Spain to spend even more of its precious silver building and maintaining colossal navies, like the ill-fated Spanish Armada, to protect its lifeline to the New World. It was a vicious cycle. More wealth meant more enemies, which meant more spending on defense, further depleting the very wealth it was trying to protect. By the 17th century, the golden age of Spain was rapidly fading. The silver mines in the New World, while still productive, began to yield less. The constant warfare, the crippling inflation, the decline of domestic industry, and the habitual defaults had taken their toll. Other European powers, particularly England and the Netherlands, which had focused on building diversified economies based on trade, manufacturing, and financial innovation, began to eclipse Spain. These nations learned from Spain's mistakes, understanding that true wealth comes not from simply possessing precious metals, but from productive enterprise, stable prices, and prudent financial management. So what can Spain's gilded curse teach us today? The story of imperial Spain is a powerful lesson in the paradox of wealth. It shows us that simply having an abundance of a valuable commodity, whether it's gold, oil, or any other natural resource, does not guarantee lasting prosperity. In fact, it can lead to what economists call the resource curse, or Dutch disease, where a booming resource sector ironically cripples other parts of the economy and fosters fiscal irresponsibility. It reminds us that sustainable economic power comes from a diverse, productive economy driven by innovation and healthy competition, not just by extracting raw materials or by printing money. It underscores the dangers of inflation, which silently erodes the wealth of a nation and destroys its productive capacity. And it serves as a stark warning against an addiction to easy money, whether it comes from plundered gold or unchecked government spending. The fall of Spain wasn't a sudden collapse, but a slow, agonizing decline brought on by the very riches it coveted. It's a haunting echo across the centuries. True wealth isn't what you find, it's what you build. If you learned something, hit subscribe. Have a great day.